We've had a really quick start to the day here. 2 3-0s right off of the bat with obviously the Trucky Milkman eliminated, as well as DHDK Nation. Now we're through to our top 6 here in the European bracket. I'm Healing Stat hosting. We have Venruki, Super Tease, and Zico here for us on the desk. And now we've got to head through to the upper bracket. This is the 2 teams that really have meant business in the summer season. Method Black, who obviously have had a fantastic year. They're by far and away the #1 team on points, looking like they're very likely to go to BlizzCon for the European region. And Zizon, who have had a fantastic start to summer. They're currently #2, this fresh roster in the summer season, looking like they should qualify through to the summer finals. And in the past, Zizon, or certainly some semblance of this team, Drainer in particular, has caused issues for Method Black running the Warrior and the Death Knight. Do you think they'll be able to do it again here, Zico?
I'm not sure. I feel like Method Black lately has been able to take the upper hand in this matchup, but the chat disagrees with me here. 51% of you guys are going to be voting in favor of Zizon. We're going to see what Method Black has decided to pick. I'm going to go ahead and bet on the Rogue Mage Druid, potentially from Method Black. And from Zizon, I kind of want to see some kind of cleave.
Your vote is worth 1%. Do you make it 50-50 on the poll?
I make it 50-50. And I'm also right about the comp, so I want everyone to know that in the chat before, we...
Yeah, extra bonus points for Zico on the end of the desk there. We actually see another healer. We've seen Disc, we've seen Shaman, we've seen Druid, now we've seen Monk as well from Drainer. It is going to be the TSG against the Rogue Mage Druid here, and this is going to be an I can't wait for this.
If we look back to spring, Zizon, I would say formerly the Pumpers, or the majority of the team, the Pumpers at the time, actually bested Method Black in the Grand Finals, best of 7, and one of the cups in spring with this composition, with the Arms Warrior Death Knight Mistweaver. And I would have to say that the Arms Warrior comp is probably stronger in 8.2, so if they were able to best them then with it, perhaps they can even do it more swiftly here in 8.2. Drainer stunned up early. Where's the crowd control to follow up? Doesn't look like they're going for crowd control, instead targeting the healer. We've seen this from Rogue Mage throughout the day of just training down the healer. I don't know if it's necessarily the best choice, or maybe they're just trying to bait some cooldowns, but they don't end up getting anything from Drainer initially.
Well, I think it's a good strategy for the Frost Mage and the Restoration Druid, particularly because there's not too many people you can actually take down. I feel like they're going to go after Waz in this matchup, try to create as much space as possible. But if you have Raikou and Chaz just sitting in the open, babysitting, just polymorphing Nerd Rage, putting Jamie in a Nova, it's really difficult for Drainer to really help them out with the dispels that they need to get out of that crowd control. So it's not too bad if they want to go after the healer. They can get a lot of control on Nerd Rage and Jamie. Looks like they're actually going to be going after Nerd Rage in this matchup. Drainer pushes in, gets some crowd control, nicely done on that Mistweaver Monk. Now Raikou, Waz, and Chaz looking to set up an attack here on Nerd Rage with a beautiful polymorph over onto Drainer. Do they have any follow-up damage? What is Nerd Rage going to be able to do? A beautiful intimidating shout slows down this attack. Drainer comfortably sitting through this blind as Nerd Rage just leaps away behind the pillar, but Waz in pursuit with a Shadow Step.
All right, Waz going to be switching targets here. I think ping-ponging is the best strategy. So ping-ponging basically meaning switching between 2 targets, that being Drainer and Nerd Rage. Jamie is just ignore him until dampening. Crowd control him, make it really difficult for him to deal damage, but you don't want to be attacking the Death Knight before dampening. The percentage-based healing going to be too difficult for them to really kill him, but he is susceptible to crowd control, which he is sitting quite a lot of right now, unable to really find a target. Waz is trying to run down Drainer while still applying damage to Nerd Rage on the way, and I think this is the most effective strategy pre-dampening for Method Black. Now, should they make it into dampening and Chaz has enough mana, Jamie definitely then becomes the better target because he doesn't run away as quickly as the Monk or the Warrior. Nerd Rage Bladestorming away during this attack while Drainer was polymorphed. He activated Bladestorm to immune being stunned and then escaped to safety. Good response on his part. Now it looks like they're switching to Chaz, trying to pressure the Druid away, deny some Cyclones, or maybe even open an opportunity for a kill, but didn't end up getting a bar skin from him, unfortunately. Now switching their attention back onto Raikou and Waz, getting quite a bit of damage onto both those members at this moment in time. Mana slightly in favor of Drainer, as it is likely to be the case. There's just so much more crowd control applied to him, and when you're crowd controlled for an extended period of time, you actually end up dropping combat, and your mana regeneration is increased out of combat, so Drainer will be regenerating a lot of mana throughout the fight. I don't actually think that Method Black have a win condition through that method, that rather they're going to win with crowd control, burst, or deeper in dampening sustained pressure onto Nerd Rage or Jamie, whereas Chaz needs to look to try and regenerate his mana with drinks, but maybe the new essences will allow Chaz to get around that weakness with the Lucid Dreams giving him 50% off costs, a sale on his heals every once in a while, and the Ever-Rising Tide granting him some mana regeneration as well. It could be that this Essence shores up the weakness that Method Black have, enough so that they can make it into those dampening stages and then just overwhelm Jamie. I would say overall, defensively, Method Black, their strategy is on point. Just crowd controlling Jamie, really taking him out of the match. Nerd Rage as well. You're pointing that out at the start. They're doing a great job of just crowd controlling them. Now with an attempt onto Drainer. He's got the anti-magic zone, this purple barrier, reducing a lot of magic damage, but even still with its protection, has to commit the Life Cocoon shield as well. 2 cooldowns and 1 assault. However, it was the Vendetta, so I think that it was more than okay for Drainer to make that trade. Big damage onto Raikou, but a big heal from Chaz, equally so.
Drainer does manage to hold on. It's going to be just about creating space from Waz the entire game. Waz, of course, when he's left alone, he's able to get these re-stealths, which is really important. Cheap shot on a Nerd Rage, Garrote silence on Drainer. He lands the Ring of Peace. Nicely done. That should be enough to keep Drainer alive as he uses his Transcendence to escape danger. And what Drainer's basically doing in this matchup is he's trying to create as much space as possible. So Raikou and Waz can't connect on him at the same time. And if they can't take him down in a stun lock, it's unlikely that he will fall. We have about 30 seconds left until Dampening kicks in. There's actually a new timer at the top of the map that I just noticed. So we can see exactly when Dampening will kick in after 5 minutes elapse in the match. Nerd Rage getting swapped to. Decent damage coming in from Raikou and Waz as they make a swap. Drainer with a preemptive Life Cocoon onto Nerd Rage. Nerd Rage actually got cycloned on that Life Cocoon. He decided to trinket out to keep up the aggression. Now Nerd Rage with no trinket and Drainer with no Life Cocoon. There's a potential opening here for Method Black if they want to make a big swap onto the Arms Warrior of Nerd Rage.
Interesting. I think Nerd Rage is running the Conflict and Strife, which is a bit peculiar for the Arms Warrior. I would have almost rather him run the cooldown, the Perfection, the Essence of Perfection, or the Blood of the Enemy to get some extra damage. I'm not so sold. I mean, I guess he expects to be the target, so he wants the versatility that Conflict and Strife brings, which is allowing him some damage reduction while he is the target, but he loses out on mobility with the Vision of Perfection, and he loses out on a lot of damage as well, so I'm not sure if he can afford to trade off that damage for more defense. We're going to find out when we get into deep Dampening if he is able to do enough damage then with this defensive build, then sure, it works out fine for them. But if he is unable to really get enough pressure going, then it may be the case that Nerd Rage needs to switch this Essence moving forward for the rest of the series.
Yeah, disarm on Waz. Big leg sweep coming in from Drainer. Do they have any follow-up damage? Chaz with an immediate Iron Bark to reduce that damage. You can see Raikou and Chaz, they're just playing in the open. They want to extend Jamie and Nerd Rage, want to allow Waz as much uptime as possible onto Drainer. Drainer with a kidney shot on him. Frozen Orb gets dropped down. Big burst damage coming in from Method Black. What is Drainer going to be able to do? Fortifying Brew, he has the Life Cocoon, Safeguard procs as well. That's a lot of defense traded out by Zizon at this point in the game. And Drainer could be in some trouble. If he has to use the Life Cocoon, that's basically every single one of his defensives traded out at the same time. And now he did. There's no Life Cocoon, there's no Safeguard, there's no Fortifying Brew, there's no Trinket. And Drainer, if Method Black can stay on target, Drainer will surely fall.
I mean, he easily dies in the next attack, and Method Black know that, so they're actually going to switch targets to try and catch Drainer off guard, go after Nerd Rage instead. Not finding too much damage there, still just waddling their way over to Drainer. Jamie still sitting in crowd control. Drainer not really able to support him in this moment in time. Nerd Rage is trying to pressure Waz away with damage and disarm to deny some damage, but Drainer gets counterspelled. If this is a counterspell into a full kidney shot, I don't think he makes it out alive. Beautiful crowd control chain set up here. The anti-magic zone defense needs to be enough for Drainer to stay in the fight. Is it going to be? He gets bashed for 1 second. Waz is trying to take him down, but he's overextended for quite a long period of time. Drainer Transcendence is away. Chaz jumps on top of him to cyclone him at low health, buying time for Waz to waddle over, but Waz is taking quite a bit of damage on his way there. Chaz stabilizes him. Drainer cycloned again. Waz just needs to be able to get around the corner. He's not able to. Drainer catches the Life Cocoon, Ring of Peace, preventing Waz from connecting. But Nerd Rage was still low on health. Locked down in a stun. Raikou teeing off, doing a ton of pressure. Now cycloning Nerd Rage at low health. Chaz's cyclones are beautiful in this position, making it very difficult for Drainer to really recover at any moment. Raikou tries to blink on top of Drainer, gets faked out by the movement. Drainer connects some big heals here just in the nick of time. Waz moving over, still trying to keep it a surprise as far as what target he's going after, but Drainer makes it out alive of that situation where Vendetta was available and he had no Gladiator's Medallion. Now his team is in a confident position.
Yeah, just looking at some of the talent choices for Waz, I mean, he had to know he was going to be the main target in this matchup, so of course, running that Gladiator Safeguard as sort of a safety net. If he can stay alive, I don't know how Method Black is going to lose this matchup. Big attempt over onto Drainer. Cheap shot into Garrote silence. Drainer getting really low. Life Cocoon coming up in just 2 seconds. Manages to hold on. There's been really good kiting and positioning coming in from Drainer in this matchup. Have to say he's been doing an excellent job. Method Black trying to find openings in the matchup. Nerd Rage getting a little bit low once again. Drainer kind of struggling. If you look at mana, Drainer and Chaz are relatively even, but I just feel like it's going to be really difficult for Drainer at any point in this game to get out of combat, try to sit down for a drink to recover that mana, but he might not need to. Right now, we're at 22% dampening. A warrior with sharpened blade, with an unholy death knight, that's a lot of damage. That's a lot of reduction in healing. If Zizon can stay on target for quite some time, if they go after Raikou and can prevent him from getting out additional damage and they have high uptime on them, they might be able to actually take him down at this point in the game.
I still think Nerd Rage should maybe potentially at least try the Vision of Perfection. He'd be getting more mobility with the Blade Storm, potentially avoiding crowd control at critical moments as well. Just more mobility in general, which is typically the weakness when a Frost Mage is on the opposing team. Of course, the Conflict and Strife is just a straightforward safe pick. You get, I believe, Spell Reflect or Sharpened Blade baseline, so you can run Spell Reflect more reliably and not lose out on offense there. Drainer interrupted, and they cut right through that Life Cocoon like butter at Dampening this far deep, 27%. Mana in favor of Chaz. That is not good for Zizon overall. What are they really going to do to mix this up? I feel like Jamie has just been crowd controlled for so much of this fight. He's not developing nearly any momentum. He's not stopping any sort of mana regeneration, although Chaz doesn't even really need to drink. Definitely those new essences paying out for him on this composition in particular. Anti-magic zone to protect Nerd Rage, but that defense is now faded. Nerd Rage is even lower on health. Drainer doesn't have a Gladiator's Medallion. Waz has 2 targets that look pretty juicy in this position.
Yeah, I mean, Nerd Rage is really vulnerable here. He has the Trinket and the Die by the Sword. Drainer gets zapped! This is a disaster. Unfortunately for Waz, it was diminishing return. Are they going to be able to get any damage rolling? Pre-fortifying Brew on Drainer. They baited him, and now they're going after Nerd Rage. How is Nerd Rage going to respond? He trinkets. Heroic leaps behind the pillar. Drainer has to get in line of sight to land some heals, but Nerd Rage is line of sighting him. Life Cocoon comes in. Drainer has to get out some casted heals at 33% dampening. Of course, the Serpent Jade statue isn't going to be enough. He needs to land those enveloping mists if you want to actually top him off. Waz is pushing in. He's taking a little pressure right now. Chaz realizing that, throws out the Iron Bark to give him a little bit of added defense. But, I mean, Zizon, they're holding on, but they just haven't had any damage in this matchup. Method Black has been healthy the entire game. Raikou maybe forced into his first Ice Block. It could be. Temporal Shield comes in. They managed to get the Sharpened Blade. It's not available, unfortunately. Raikou will bounce back to basically full health, but at this point, if Zizon can stay up and have uptime on Raikou, they might be able to start really developing a lead, because outside of, right now, even right now, there's just no damage for Zizon, which is completely unexpected for the Arms Warrior and the Unholy Death Knight.
I think in this particular matchup, Zizon used to bank on the Gladiator's Maledict for pushes, but Gladiator's Maledict has been changed. It's a lot less front-loaded. It does a similar healing absorption, but it's over time every 2 seconds. And because it's not front-loaded, you can't just burst somebody down in a small crowd control window, which is really the only thing Zizon has is a small crowd control window. So now that the Gladiator's Maledict is not really an option for them on the table for pushes, they're not finding those ice blocks when they used to, and Dampening is just continuing to rise even higher, potentially record-breaking here in this match. Mana is still so substantial on both sides. Waz peeled away with the disarm. Nerd Rage able to run that honor talent as a result of the Conflict and Strife, but I still feel like they need to focus more on damage essences, some more damage in general, because right now, I don't know. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to make it out alive. I would like to see Method Black switch targets and go after Jamie. We're now at that 40% mark of Dampening. I think that he becomes a lot better of a target, then switch your crowd control to the Warrior instead with the Polymorph Cyclones and Entangling Roots or Frost Novas. So far, they're still continuing the ping-pong strategy of going back and forth between the Mistweaver Monk and the Arms Warrior, which is developing at least a decent amount of pressure on Drainer right now. He transcendences, but he doesn't transcendence out of line of sight. Waz reconnects with the Shadow Step. Drainer, in desperation to get out of line of sight, manages to connect some heals, but the Gladiator's Maledict actually absorbing quite a lot of them. Now Cyclone at low health, setting up for a kidney shot potentially here. They're trying to stall out, waiting for that cooldown of the stun to do it immediately while Drainer is low on health, but they disarm Waz right when he wanted to kidney shot Drainer. That disarm was perfect by Nerd Rage. Drainer tries to escape, but he's flurried. He's Nova'd in place. He actually has to dispel himself to get away from Waz, which means Nerd Rage and Jamie, they're going to be sitting a lot of crowd control without their healers dispel. Mana starting to be totally relinquished on both sides. Waz being pressured a bit. but he's actually still trying to go for the kill. Interrupting Drainer, now going after Nerd Rage. Nerd Rage anticipates it, activates the die by the sword, but now at almost 50% dampening. How much healing can Drainer really do? Gets cycloned. He's not going to do any healing while cycloned. Nerd Rage is just cowering around the corner, hoping that Waz doesn't connect. They leg sweep Waz, but then Drainer gets cheap shot. Nerd Rage is going to be taking a huge amount of damage. If Raikou gets in there for a polymorph, it should almost certainly be the end of the game. And even if it isn't, now Drainer is susceptible to blind. Nerd Rage is cycloned on low health. Now in a full stun. Trinkets, Life Cocoon, Drainer doing everything in his power to keep this game going, but they still have so much to get through.
Dampening is just so high. What is Drainer going to be able to do? He has to trade out all of his mana, just spamming out the enveloping mist. Nerd Rage is almost just dead. Right now, Zizon, they have to find some pressure, but Raikou, he hasn't been forced into an ice block the entire game. It would be a complete throw by Method Black at this point. Full blind onto Drainer, kidney shot onto Nerd Rage. Do they have the damage to take him down? If Nerd Rage survives this, it's going to be an absolute miracle. Polymorph on Drainer, they interrupt the Cyclone. Can Chaz land it? Does manage to unfortunately get interrupted. Drainer caught into a polymorph. Good teamwork there by Method Black, and I just don't think Nerd Rage can hold on to this point. Cyclone onto Drainer. He ultimately falls. 55% dampening. A valiant effort by Zizon, but I have to be honest, there's just no damage. Like, how are they going to win this game?
Yeah, it seems so difficult for them. Both these teams kind of going tooth and nail, but at the end of the day, Method Black just doesn't seem to be able to die. There was never really any pressure points. They looked solid the entire game, and ultimately when Dampening ramps up enough, they find the setups and they're able to land the kills.
Well, that's the thing. Method Black, they're kind of just playing to survive, and while it looks like it's an aggressive strategy to go after the healer, it's actually one of the most defensive strategies that you can do, because you just have Jamie in a permanent chain of polymorphs and cyclones pretty much the entirety of the game. Drainer, he can't really go out and dispel people as easily as well, and of course when you do get into the later stages of the game, you can always swap back and forth between Nerd Rage and Drainer, and they found an opportunity here where they get the full CC chain with the blind, and they're going to be following it up, and then on the next polymorph there after this, there's just nothing Nerd Rage really can do to survive here. He gets behind the pillar. Actually, even on this CC chain here, there's still a bash to go with that. Waz, just relentlessly pursuing. And, the Arms Warrior, we've said it time and time again, they bring a lot of damage, bring a lot of pressure, but they don't bring any self-healing. And self-healing is, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I do want to highlight in this game, so both the healers are actually running the same essences. They were running this kind of defensive tie that you'll see. The Memory of the Lucid Dreams is the major and minor, and then obviously the Ever-Rising Tide is the minor. And all of these give you mana back. And actually, we saw Chaz got about 56,000 mana back in game from the two essences and the new weapon enchant. Drainer also got about 45,000 back. So both these healers are basically playing with multiple mana pools because of how much mana they can get back from these traits, which is why they still have such fantastic mana, 50-60% dampening in these games. The other thing I want to talk about, and I want to get your guys' takes on this, is the trinket choices. So in North America, no one is using Maldex anymore. You talked about it during the cast. It's not front heavy. The healing absorb is kind of over time. It's gradual. But in Europe, still all of these teams, or the majority of them, are running it. What do we think about Maldex in this new patch?
I feel like initially there was a bit of a shock. People were like, well, Maledict, it does because basically the way Maledict work now is it's like a damage over time effect and a reduction in healing over time effect. So instead of doing all the healing reduction, all the damage right away, it sort of trickles over a few seconds. And I think teams feel like that's a lot easier to deal with. But I mean, if you're looking at these games and you're getting into the later stages of dampening, 50% dampening, that healing reduction really starts to add up, and that additional damage also really starts to add up. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad choice. You can see that a lot of the the players aren't playing around Maledict. In the past, they would tune their races. They'd go Dark Iron Dwarf for Fireblood. Everyone would be playing Night Elf to shadow meld the incoming Maledicts, and people aren't doing that anymore. So there's not as much of a direct counter in terms of races in the game. So maybe teams are trying to capitalize on that and still get that little bit of damage and mana or healing reduction for their burst moments.
Yeah, and
I don't think it's bad.
Yeah, okay. We're in agreement with that. We think it's just kind of not necessary, but it is still relevant.
On whether or not if you really need the defense of the Gladiator Safeguard and then the Battlemaster Trinket. I feel like that's kind of the other standard combination right now. It just gives you a big shield when you get low on health. Battlemaster gives you a boost of health. So it's just very good options to stay alive. I think a lot of players are running that. I think I'm maybe a bit surprised to not see Zizon running that build. and just focusing on purely surviving with the Battle Master and the Safeguard, because the Glaire's Maledict for them didn't look nearly as effective, but for Method Black it felt like it still was, because it could crowd control the other members, have that healing absorption stacking while Drainer was kiting and not healing, so it seemed like it was pretty effective on the Mistweaver, but for the Armsbury and the Death Knight it didn't seem like it was nearly as effective the opposite way around. This is an interesting map selection from Zizon. This is telling me that they're trying to steal Tolvaron away from Method Black. They're saying, here's your best map for Rogue Mage, lock in Rogue Mage, we have something that counters it, and maybe that's the return of their Warlock Shaman composition, but their Warlock Shaman composition does really well against all of the other Rogue Mages, but not Method Black's. So this is going to be the test. If Zizon can beat Method Black's Rogue Mage with their Elemental Shaman Warlock, then I think Zizon looks like a strong contender to take the whole tournament. But if they still can't, then, I mean, who's going to take on Method Black? Is it going to be Enlight? Maybe.
That's a good question.
I mean, Enlight took one game off of them and looked pretty strong against Chalky Milkman, so these are the things I'm really considering, is who can catch up to Method Black, who can stop them from getting first place every time.
Yeah, when you see Tolvaron Arena, one of the things you got to think about with Zizon is Mercy, right? Like on the Warlock, maybe they bring him out, maybe they put Jamie on the Elemental. But I was talking to Jamie yesterday a little bit, and he was saying he actually doesn't like Elemental Shaman in this patch. He feels like Lasso, obviously it became part of the Conflict and Strife, so it got changed. It's not percentage-based damage anymore, because that'd be a bit ridiculous in PvE if you could just percentage-based kill a boss or something like that. So now it does kind of a normal damage number. And since people have so much health now, it doesn't really do significant damage, apparently, on the TR. You know, they really struggle to get kills. The Earthshock trade as well, it doesn't do damage. So he hasn't really been liking the Elemental. But one comp we did see a little bit yesterday on Wednesday was some of the Shadow Priests coming in. So maybe there's potential they could bring in some composition like that with Jamie on SP.
Yeah, Shadow Priests. We initially thought that Shadow Priests weren't going to be that good, but Shadow Priests have been performing. You guys were talking about the move making it to the deeper stages of dampening, and Whiskey being able to dish out a whole bunch of damage with new essences. So potentially, I'm still excited. I'm still curious to see why they picked this map. If they don't like the LA Shaman, because it feels like, well, Zizon picks Tolvaron, that means we're going to see Ellie and Destro. But if they don't like the Ellie, I personally wasn't that impressed by Jamie's SP. So I don't know, but maybe Shadow play is something that we've kind of heard some people talk about. We heard I think it was Oz, right, who said that
it's not a matter of hearing they beat Method Orange.
Yeah, they created them, right?
Oz said that against Cloud9,
he would never lose
they would never lose playing with a Shadow Priest lock against the MLD.
Why?
This is interesting.
Yep.
So is this just a takeaway map then? With Drainer's hopping over to the Druid, that's the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah, but takeaway for what? I mean,
this
is best case scenario for Method Black. I mean, think about the strategy Method Black implemented in the last game. Raikou and Chaz, they sat in the open. This is a pretty good map for sitting in the open. I mean, if Waz is the only target that they can really go after, I don't know. I mean, maybe Zizon can find a kill attempt, but in the last game, it just felt really hopeless for them.
Yeah, it's a rough one, right? Like, maybe they were even trying to deter them off of the Rogue Mage, trying to bait them into playing, like, their Warlock Mage, which a lot of the European teams kind of make fun of them when they play that. So, I guess here, Method Black, they just stuck with their guns. They've looked great on the Rogue Mage Druid this season, and they're not going to be deterred.
I mean, I feel like have we seen them only play Rogue Mage outside? I mean, on broadcast, I know in some of the earlier stages they play other compositions, but on broadcast in the summer season, I feel like they've only played Rogue Mage.
They played one MLD game, I think, in one of the grand finals, like Cup 1 or something.
Okay.
But I mean, essentially,
they were winning as Rogue Mage. They just brought in swaps. He's like, I want to play.
Yeah, exactly.
So they've been looking really good. They've been looking really good on Rogue Mage Druid, and I think 8.2. It may have made Mage Druid even better. Like, it's definitely a possibility. It seems like Restoration Druids, they have a really big mana pool. Now Mages, they always have access to Temporal Shield, basically, if they decide to go with the Conflict and Strife essence. They always have Temporal Shield, which makes them even more durable, and they can extend the game later. And we know Rogue Mage Druid, I mean, it was a composition in the past where you'd go really aggressive. You'd go for these extended CC chains and try to take down people really quickly. But now teams like Method Black, they're playing for the long game. They're completely happy to just stall out the game, wait till the control is in their favor, and they can essentially just dampen a lot of these teams. And I feel like 8.2 made that even better for Method Black.
Yeah, I mean, there's the other thing as well. Like, we talked about Maldex as kind of like like this offensive trinket option, you can't really have a conversation about trinkets without talking about the buffs to safeguard, right? Like all of these trinkets during the patch, basically the higher item level they are, they essentially got scaled in such a way that it's essentially a buff for any absorb or healing item or anything like that. So safeguard, whereas it did about 60k I think last season, now it's healing for upwards of about 120, 130k at this item level, and that's why you see these massive absorbs. It just helps prolong the game for these comps.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see. Zizon, I mean, you would think a composition like an Arms Warrior and a Holy Death Knight would be able to generate a lot of pressure, but it's just difficult. If Raikou isn't blinking in to get polymorphs and he's using every single one of his shimmers, has just mobility to escape and create distance and survive, it's really, really difficult for an Arms Warrior and an Unholy Death Knight to actually win. Like,
that's where the
go after.
Come in. I want Vision of Perfection on Nerd Rage. I want him playing a reduced cooldown on Bladestorm, random proc on Bladestorm, just Bladestorm the entire game.
Is it time for Ripple in space? I know you like this one,
I love it.
Yeah,
I think
the
it's
teleport.
great.
It's only 2-second teleport at level 3 as well. You definitely would get good mobility with it.
Yeah, I mean,
more mobility than infinite Bladestorms.
Well, it's not infinite blade storms.
Infinite
it's like
blade works, but
one
Bladestorm.
proc a minute for 2 seconds or something. Come on.
It's infinite Bladestorm. You can run an Honor talent along with Anger Management. You run the Lucid Dreams passive, so you're spending more rage, and you spend more rage, reduce the cooldown of Bladestorm that's already reduced and has a chance to proc randomly. It's infinite Bladestorm.
I want to see Ripple in time. That's what or Ripple in space. Sorry.
Ripple in time and space.
Yeah, Ripple in time and space. We'll have to see if any teams... I think
I'm checking what he's running.
Out of all the new essences, I think a Ripple in space is my absolute favorite.
I'm using the new extension.
It's essentially like a blink for everybody.
He's still running Conflict and Strife. I don't like it.
All right, well...
Neither of you like it. Neither of us like it.
It's not that I don't like it. Oh.
The other one is more fun, and I like it more, so he should have played that one.
Well,
okay.
I don't know.
They're trying to win a tournament here, Sid.
No, it's about having fun. Isn't that what you were taught as a kid in like some sports? Like, are you playing for fun or playing to win? You should play
these
to have
guys.
fun,
Okay, these guys are definitely playing.
Kind of fun.
They're definitely playing to win, and winning is also fun. It's not the.
But they're losing, so if they lose again, it's not playing to have fun or win.
All right, let's see how this game plays out. Nerd Rage is going to be opening up on Raikou. Can they develop any pressure? Drainer into a kidney shot. It looks like a similar strategy coming in from Method Black, where they're going to be controlling Jamie, controlling Nerd Rage, allowing Waz high uptime onto Drainer, and. Who is Jamie and Drainer going to go after in this matchup? If they go after Waz, then you have a free casting Raikou and Chaz. If you go after Raikou, then Waz is just sitting on Drainer the entire game, and he could just fall at this point. Barkskin coming in from Chaz. So far, Zizon hasn't been able to deflect Method Black at all.
Drainer's getting farmed right now. He got Ursul's Vortex on his wild card. He tried to get away, and he didn't, and then he got cycloned at low health. Now he's stunned. He's just taking a beating right now. He needs to reposition, get to a moment, and recover, because he's getting stomped. Chaz is in position maybe to cyclone again, but I think Drainer's still on diminishing returns, so Chaz has to wait. He's not able to. Drainer does recover finally throughout that, but a swap like that later on, deeper into Dampening, I really don't think Drainer makes it out alive, and Method Black are still employing the same strategy. Crowd control the Death Knight Jamie, Cyclone, Polymorph, Frost Nova as much as possible. Attack the Warrior a little bit. Drainer comes to heal the Warrior, switch over to Drainer, attack Drainer, he runs away, switch back to the Warrior, and make it so difficult for Drainer to predict who is actually going to be the target, so maybe catch someone off guard and burst them down. If you don't, it's costing Drainer more mana because he has to heal 2 targets. I think that it is an effective strategy Method Black are employing, and it's likely to work for them on this map as well. Tolvaron Arena, one of the largest in the pool, and Zizon are the ones who selected it.
So that's exactly what happens. Raikou runs into the open, Polymorph Jamie, Cyclone Nerd Rage. Polymorph Jamie, Cyclone Nerd Rage. Double Frost Nova, Jamie gets Cyclones. And it's just this type of control which makes it really difficult for Zizon to get anything rolling. I mean, Raikou trades out the Temporal Shield to survive, but that's essentially a non-factor in terms of cooldowns, especially when Ironbark is still available for Chaz. Drainer's going to be put into the kidney shot. Good damage coming in from Method Black right now as they're continuing this assault, and it's going to be basically Waz onto Drainer, and then Chaz and Raikou controlling Jamie and Nerd Rage. That's the strategy we're going to be seeing. And I really feel for Jamie and Nerd Rage in this position.
Yep, having quite a difficult time, but finally some pressure. The Gladiator Safeguard going to proc. Big absorption effect there. More than enough time for Chess to swift mend and swiftly recover. Nerd Rage getting swapped to again by Method Black, still trying to mix it up. And I think in this game in particular, when you see Druid versus Druid, you see the potency of the mana regeneration essences, especially when you're pairing them together, which you can with the Major and the Minor. So both Druids, I believe, are running the Memory of Lucid Dreams, which gives you the old school Innervate, where it just enhances your mana regeneration for a short period of time every 2 minutes. And then the Minor on that is just a chance at some of your spells costing 50% reduced mana. You pair that with the Minor Azerite trait, Ever Rising Tide. This just gives you a chance, especially when you're lower mana, have a high chance to regenerate mana back. So in patch 8.1.5, we would see the Druids having to sneak away and drink a lot. With these two new essences, I don't know if there's actually ever a point in the game where they will hit 0 mana. Raikou in a bit of trouble. They're racing the Temporal Shield. I don't think you're able to crack it in time. Temporal Shield healing back all that damage, although
this is nice.
I will say the pressure is much higher for Zizon in game 2.
This is what you want. Temporal Shield down, Iron Bark down as well. This is the moment Nerd Rage and Jamie need. Once those 2 short cooldowns are down, that's your window. That's your opportunity to push forward and try to take down Raikou. But unfortunately for them, Raikou was able to stabilize. Was realizing maybe my mage is in a little bit of trouble. So he's going to be coming back and playing a much more defensive strategy where he's going after Nerd Rage in this game. He's not really going to be able to set up Raikou for any sort of polymorph plays onto Drainer. It's more of just a live tactic. And we'll have to see if he's going to be able to get it done. I expect a Shadow Step Kidney Shot shortly to happen onto Drainer. Raikou does commit his Frozen Orb, trying to get some pressure rolling onto Drainer and Nerd Rage, but it's just, or sorry, onto Jamie and Nerd Rage, but so far it's essentially futile, not able to get anything rolling. There's a Kidney Shot over onto Drainer. What is Waz going to be able to get done? Drainer could be in a little bit of trouble right now. He has all his defensive cooldowns left to work with. We're at 4 minutes, 57 seconds into the match. Dampening has now just kicked in. The last game, I think, ended at around 56% dampening. We'll have to see if we get that high once again, or if Nerd Rage and Jamie can continue this offensive push on Raikou and take him down.
All right, let's see if Zizon can turn up the heat here and take out Raikou in game number 2. If Zizon managed to pull it off, they do take away Tolvaron from Method Black's advantage, which would then only leave Ashamane's, as Ashamane and Tolvaron, I would say, are the most favored maps for Method Black in this series in particular. But Jamie is actually very low on health. Suddenly, Method Black completely switch their strategies and go after the Death Knight a bit earlier than expected, and I'm not sure if he's going to make it out alive with Icebound Fortitude. Iron Bark used at the same time during this assault. Cycloned at low health. Drainer used his Gladiator's Medallion on a Polymorph. Now he's fully susceptible to Blind. Vendetta is still available, and I'm wondering if Jamie spent his Runic Power aggressively, if he just wasn't even anticipating being a target. He wanted to get aggressive, and now that he spent all that Runic Power, he can't use Death Strike, he can't heal himself. Waz is setting up for crowd control. Full Polymorph secured. Anti-Magic Zone's defense going to be fading shortly. Anti-Magic Shield still available if Jamie needs to use it, but he's line of sighting Raikou. I think it's unlikely that we see it activated. Drainer bounces over, but needs to line of sight Cyclone. Jamie going to mind free Cyclone and allow Drainer to freely heal. Nerd Rage sitting through quite a lot of crowd control. Was trying to use the War Banner on something during that attack, but didn't end up hitting anything too valuable. Raikou going to snipe off the War Banner. Drainer has recovered. Vendetta is now no longer available, although Jamie as a target now in Dampening. Method Black has shown that that is an option, and the deeper that it gets, the more likely that he dies. Jamie anticipates this attack. Anti-Magic Shields before the incoming stun. That was a nice read on his part. He takes 0 damage as a result.
Yep. And Raikou will survive. Temporal Shield, Iron Bark, those are the 2 check marks. Now Zizon, they need to get aggressive. Finally, some good spread pressure coming in from Zizon as well, because all 3 members from Method Black have been taking damage. Waz, and I'm curious to see if they do decide to go after him. There's a defensive kitty shot over on the Nerd Rage. Raiku's spamming out some Frostbolts right now, but not able to get too much done. Drainer in a healthy position in terms of mana. Chaz as well. I don't think either of them have had to sneak away for a drink just yet, but that might be something that becomes an inevitability at some point in this matchup. Waz getting swatted away by Jamie and Nerd Rage as he's forced to run away. Can't really continue the pursuit onto Drainer. And I think this is a good tactic. If Waz has too much uptime on Drainer, that's when Method Black starts developing a lot of pressure and momentum. So Jamie and Nerd Rage in a situation like that, they might have to go after Waz and try to slow him down just a little bit. But it's sort of a double-edged sword, because if you do that, then all of a sudden Chaz and Raikou, they can just free cast in the matchup, set up a lot of damage, set up a lot of control, whereas if they're just sitting on Raikou, although they're not getting the most amount of pressure, they're also not allowing Raikou to get out as many polymorphs, as many frostbolts, as many blizzards, and that slows down his damage and basically his specialization in general.
Yeah, I think going after Raikou is a lot better at dragging the fight on, although they still haven't managed to get a single ice block. Mana looks totally fine on both sides. I think with those new essences, any lead is not really going to be too much of a factor. I think it's simply just the healing reduced by dampening that is going to close this game out. It's a matter of how much momentum and at what point can teams force cooldowns. If at around that 40% we see both ice blocks already burned through for Raikou, then most certainly he's the easiest target to kill. But if they can't get any ice blocks before that, Drainer is so susceptible to just falling down, blinded at low health, not using the Gladius Medallion on this. Likely getting sapped. This is buying time for Raikou to make his way over, although he's still very far away from Drainer. Was going to just sit here and babysit Drainer, sap him 3 times, try to give Raikou enough time to get across the map, but there's no way Raikou's getting there. Was going to re-engage by himself, managing to pull Iron Bark and Barkskin throughout this assault. Raikou going to jump over with the Frozen Orb, and at 24% dampening, they're just going to go for the kill. Anti-Magic Zone traded out, but then Cycloned at low health. Drainer trinkets on the Cyclone, but now susceptible to a stun. Icy Veins is still available. Cycloned again, buying even more time for Was. The Vision of Perfection has triggered Was's Vendetta for a few seconds. That's a lot of enhanced damage. Is Drainer going to be able to make it out alive? Somehow, some way, manages to hold on. Now Barkskin available in just a couple of seconds. Stunned up Barkskins, but he's not in bear form. If Raikou has any amount of damage with these Icy Veins, Drainer could fall. No follow-up stuns. A Cyclone again at low health. I mean, Method Black have full control of this game. I think it's an inevitability at this point for Zizon to fall over.
Yeah, Drainer, is he going to get caught into a stun? Preemptive Iron Bark on the Growth Sounds. Nicely done as he's trying to create some space. Chaz is controlling everyone up in this matchup. Was, Raikou, Chaz, all 3 members chasing down Drainer. Nerd Rage and Jamie just helplessly in a Nova as Drainer gets caught into a bash. This could be the end of the game, and certainly will be. 30% dampening, Method Black, total control of that matchup. Essentially no scary moments in the game for them, and Zizon, they have to figure something out.
Yeah, they really do. They're really struggling here. They don't really want to go for the Warlock Shaman, it looks like, even on the large map. They chose Tolvaron here. Bear in mind, this was the map choice from Zizon, and it looks just as dominant here for Method Black. But, I mean, at the same time, you can't take anything away from Method Black. Yes, we say that the Mage Druid is very strong, clearly showing that off here, but they're the ones playing it the best, and they're looking like they'll go through to Sunday's upper finals.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams playing the Rogue Mage Druid, but quite few of them can play it as well as Method Black. Drainer, of course, is in this situation because he sat a blind. He got blinded up low, and then he got sapped, and then they reopened, and they kind of forced Drainer to trinket out of a Cyclone a little bit later on, and it's just kind of messed up his entire flow there. And of course, Chaz, once again, I mean, look at these Cyclones. He gets the low Cyclone, he gets the low Recyclone, allows Waz to get a re-stealth, allows him to get that empowered Garrote Silence, and then here he's spamming out his roots onto Drainer. Waz getting changed device after he Shadow Step, which means he can't reach Drainer anymore. Instead, Chaz goes for the bash, which of course does allow Waz to reconnect and get that kidney. Raikou as well dropping that Frozen Orb. It's just Chaz.
Yeah, Chaz just playing insane, right? Perfect low Cyclones,
Standard.
Never mistimes his Recyclones, perfect play, gets the bash for the kill, and hey, Method Black 2-0 up, they're looking like they're going through solidly through to Sunday. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are here in the series between Method Black and Zizon. Method Black, of course, with a 2-0 victory. It's been a day of 3-0s here in patch 8.2. Clearly, some teams really have stepped up and head here in the meta. Method Black, one of those teams, looking strong to go through to Sunday in the upper bracket final with a clean victory here against Zizon. Zizon, though, have been the only team kind of contesting them. They've also been one of the pick of the bunches here in summer. They need to find an answer, though, because Drainer and his team are facing dropping down to the lower bracket later today. And I mean, Method Black, they're looking unbeatable once again here. Spring, they won almost all the cups. I think they won 3 out of 6 cups, which is really impressive. They almost take it all in the spring finals. They come 3rd. Now they're looking to repeat once again here in summer.
They just play the composition how it's supposed to be played right now. They have beautiful control. We kind of highlighted Chaz in that last game. You know, defensively, his Cyclones are beautifully, but also offensively. Whenever they have a big attempt, you know, for example, onto Drainer, and they manage to get out those defensive cooldowns, that's when he throws in a Cyclone on him, freezing up his hit points and allowing Waz and Raikou a little bit more time time to sort of generate pressure. I think for Method Black, that kind of synergy is what has been so key for their success.
Yeah, and we see Zizon actually going to revert back to a smaller map. I think we're all happy to see that. And Drainer goes back to the Monk. And it did look like he had a better time healing through it on the Monk. But ultimately, I think our big questions for Zizon is where does their offense come from, Sid?
I think they have to change their builds. I think drop the Conflict and Strife, get the Vision of Perfection, maybe even Jamie as well. Go for the Dark Simulacrum, try to steal some crowd control, because they're not winning in they're not winning before dampening, and they're not winning in dampening. So change the essences to give you more likelihood to win before dampening. Try it. And that's the only thing that you haven't tried. You've picked a good map to try it. Hook Point being a small map, really easy to hit targets, especially ones like Frost Mage that are going to avoid you. So if there was going to be a time and a place to go more aggressive or change your build, I think it's now. And Drainer, I think, is running Way of the Crane, which he wasn't running in game number 1. I just want to see Zizon try an aggressive game. Even if theoretically maybe it doesn't work at all, it's the only option that they haven't tried. And if it works, then it's better than nothing.
This is one of those things that we say about the European teams sometimes, right? Like sometimes they feel like defense is their only option. If the defense doesn't work, they're kind of stumped for what they should do next until North America comes in and bats them silly a little bit with some versatility Feral Druids. But I mean, Zizon once again here, maybe an all-in strategy could work for them either way. Looks like they are making a couple of swaps with Drainer going over to the Way of the Crane. We'll have to see if it's enough to take down the formidable Method Black.
Yeah, and we'll have to see what they can get done. Method Black with all-out control in that last game. Zizon, we're looking for a little bit more early game aggression from them. This smaller map certainly should be able to help them. Drainer seems to be the target of choice once again. Garrote Silence coming in. Are they going to be able to find the stun? There's a disarm over on Waz, delaying the kidney shot just a little bit. There's a bash on Drainer. Nice attempt here from Method Black. Frozen Orb gets dropped down. How is Drainer going to survive? Just immediately Trinketing, or using the Life Cocoon, sorry, as well as the Way of the Crane. So Drainer actually opting to play Way of the Crane in this matchup. That will be a little bit of extra damage, and Sid, is that what we wanted to see?
I mean, it's just something that I would like to see. I'm not sure if it's ultimately going to be what can win them. Maybe they need to switch their composition entirely, maybe get the Arms Warrior out of there, try the Windwalker Death Knight again instead, because so far I feel like Method Black has kind of just been walking all over them. I mean, have we even seen an ice block from R2UB in this series?
No.
So, I mean, 2 games, no ice blocks, maybe 3 games in a row not getting a single ice block. I mean, something has to change.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Way of the Crane is enough. If they can get Ironbark and Temporal Shield, and that's when they use the Way of the Crane, that they might be able to take him down. I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to check, but did we see Nerd Rage actually change up his
he's still running Conflict and Strife, so is Jamie.
So it's the same gearing from them.
But the only difference is the Way of the Crane from Drainer, which he was running against these Rogue Mage setups in previous patches like 8.1.5, but without the Gladiator's Maledict up front pressure, much more sustained over time. I'm not sure if the added Way of the Crane punch is really enough on its own, or if they need that extra healing absorption. Drainer being pressured, Method Black taking full advantage of the small map as well for their own favor. I will say that Method Black, even though they get maybe an unfavored matchup or an unfavored map, they are always playing to the absolute strongest strategy. Given even their worst hand, they're playing to the best of their abilities. Luckily there for Drainer, his Transcendence did not get Ursul's Vortex back there in the midfield. It may have just been his Guardian's Medallion or his life if it had. Jamie locked down in crowd control. Method Black still continue their consistency, making sure that they're not leaving any holes. If Jamie wasn't in a polymorph right now, that this could have maybe been an ice block on R2UB. Drainer does at least secure a triple stun, but net absolutely 0 damage afterwards, and that's sort of the name of the game right now for Zizon against Method Black, is that it almost looks like they're doing no damage.
Yeah, I mean, they really haven't been able to find it so far. It's been a struggle for Zizon. I mean, the health meters do not lie. R2UB has been in trouble essentially no times throughout this entire series. There's one time in the last game where he got a little bit low, where he didn't have Temporal Shield and Ironbark, but there's always seems to be a safety net for R2UB on that Frost Mage right now. And if they can't start getting ice blocks out, we've seen it in the past. Zizon, especially with Drainer now running the Way of the Crane, they don't win in the late game in dampening. It just seems like the healing from the Mystery Monk isn't enough to hold through. They need to find these offensive push windows, and they're doing it. I mean, hats off to Drainer. Look at how aggressive he's playing. He's playing on top of R2UB. That's normally what you do not see. That's normally something you see from Mystery Monks, and it makes them susceptible in this situation. But Zizon, they have to start taking risks if they want to actually land a kill in this matchup.
They're certainly going to have to take risks. They're already on match point. It's looking likely that Method Black are going to best them, but Zizon will have a second opportunity in the lower bracket should that situation occur, where they'll have some time to maybe see some other strategies as well from the other teams. Of course, this is really the first time the teams are playing in patch 8.2, so with these changes, some of the weaknesses that they may have had before are now strengths. Strengths could have become weaknesses. Strategies that they employed that worked before may not work now. So a lot of these teams are going to just be having to fiddle around and figure out what works best. So far, I was actually expecting the Warrior Death Knight to be a strong composition overall in the tournament, but this Frost Mage, Assassination Rogue, Restoration Druid looks impenetrable to its effectiveness. I mean, really, there's no moment in these games where I'm thinking, yeah, Zizon are owning. There's just not even a moment or even a couple of seconds where I'm thinking that.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult for them, especially with the strategy they're implementing. Who do you go after? The Frost Mage? A lot of durability with the Ice Bearer. Really powerful snares. You have a Restoration Druid backing you up. I mean, we could sit here all day and talk till we're blue in the face about how, you know, durable Restoration Druid Frost Mage is, but the fact of the matter is, Zizon, they have to try to make something happen. What are they going to do? Can they go after Waz in this matchup? Do you think maybe they should continue or consider switching their target? Like, maybe they should try to pressure Chaz. He's getting out a lot of these Cyclones, which are essentially game-winning for Method Black. If they could deny those Cyclones, maybe they could get something, you know, going.
I mean, if they could, I don't even know if it's just crowd control denial. There's just no pressure. I mean, you could say, let's maybe at this point just attack Chaz. Just say, okay, whatever, nothing else has worked. Target the healer, try and run Chaz down. Chaz is running balance affinity, so he doesn't have Guardian affinity to recover. He doesn't have the Frenzied Regeneration. They may have to just take that risk. Just try and run down the healer, because, I mean, Raikou is just taking basically no damage the entire series. Waz as well is quite durable. With the stamina pools where they're at with the 445 item level, things like Crimson Vial on the Rogue heal for so much. The Ice Barrier or the Frozen Barrier for the Mage heals and absorbs for so much. Ysera's Gift from the Restoration Druid is so powerful at this moment in time with the way stamina is positioned that it's so difficult to actually get stuff rolling. Finally, a moment. Waz is low on health. Avatar and Sharpened Blade, bit of a disrespect by Waz to not use evasion during this time, but maybe it's not even necessary. Shadow steps over to Drainer to make a swap, immediately seeing that Life Cocoon and going after a more vulnerable target. Raikou would like to move over and assist, but not able to. Drainer has Way of the Crane. They're running the grapple weapon, going after Waz with Way of the Crane. They managed to finally pull evasion from him. Maybe all along Raikou was a bait. I feel like Raikou is one of the mages in every tournament that just takes the least amount of damage. But now Drainer still on the back foot. Transcendence across that Ursul's Vortex again. Fortunate that it didn't pull Drainer back in. I almost think that he would have been completely decimated if it had. Waz is marching forward, but without evasion, may need to be careful.
I actually like what Method Black does. Every time they go for these crowd control setups, they use a Maledict on Drainer, and then Drainer is basically caught between, you know, a rock and a hard place. What does he do? Does he dispel himself to get rid of Maledict, or does he dispel, you know, Nerd Rage out of a Polymorph? And it's a really difficult decision for them to make, and I think Method Black has been doing a good job so far. It's one of the things I've noticed that they consistently do in this matchup is when they get those full Polymorphs, they throw in a Maledict just for additional damage, and without Drainer being able to dispel it, that damage and healing reduction really can add up.
All right, now good pressure on both Drainer and Nerd Rage. Not much mana left for Drainer, but when he gets lower on mana, his Essence, the Rising Tide, is more likely to restore mana, so Drainer will likely bounce back between 5%, 20% mana. I don't think he will ever actually be totally tapped on mana, so he should be able to extend the game because of this. But if he gets interrupted or crowd controlled, then he's not going to be able to heal. So this, of course, Method Black have a lot of interrupts and a lot of crowd control. That's still going to be the main point for them to find victory, and it's likely going to be the way they end this. They interrupt Drainer. Drainer moves into midfield to try and maybe go for a Way of the Crane. I guess that's the one thing he is limited from using, his Way of the Crane. It's so expensive. He has to wait for those regenerations for quite some time. So even though he's low on mana, I don't know if he'll ever have enough to use that Way of the Crane again. Grapple weapon onto Waz. Waz likely still the best target, but they're targeting Raikou. They still haven't even tried to go after Chaz. I feel like at some point in this series, they should have at least tried it. They're playing so defensive. I feel like Zizon's main focus is just try to stop as much as you can, hit the mage, hit the rogue when you can't, just play to live and try and survive. But it's a strategy that's just allowing Method Black to walk all over them. There's no anticipation, there's no surprise. It's so predictable the way that they're playing, and Method Black can just shut them down and get every single setup that they want to because of it.
Yeah, Raikou with good control right now. There is a stun over onto Chaz as he gets gripped in. Maybe they're actually going to go after him. Double Intimidating Shout comes in. Raikou could be in some trouble, but Safeguard procs, Temporal Shields up. Iron Bark is used by Chaz. When big heals come in from Chaz onto Raikou, he does manage to stabilize. Drainer's mana is not doing well. Like you said, another preemptive fortifying brew onto that kidney shot, nicely done. But like you said, Sid, the way the Crane is such an expensive spell that even though mana seems to be so good for healers, especially with these new essences, every single time he's using that Way of the Crane, it's a noticeable chunk in his mana pool.
They got one.
Raikou gets really low. That was big burst coming in. Drainer with the back, off the back of that Way of the Crane, manages to force Raikou into his first ice block of the series, and that's nice for Zizon, but unfortunately, look at Drainer's health, look at his mana. How much longer can he last, Sid?
Way of the Crane got 1 ice block, so it's already, I think, better, but I still don't know how they're going to win this series, let alone even just this game. Drainer stunned up, refusing to use the Gladiator's Medallion. Makes it through. Raikou in a bit of trouble. Nerd Rage trying to chop him up. Drainer ports away. He gets out of the Ursa's Vortex before using Transcendence. That was good awareness on his part. Uses the Ring of Peace to try and interrupt Chaz, but ultimately gets Cyclone. That's going to allow Waz and Raikou to get right on top of him. Nerd Rage in position, trying to counter pressure, interrupting the Polymorph. Good damage on Raikou. Finally! Good damage from Zizon. Chaz is stunned. No Iron Bark for some time. Raikou in trouble. Second ice block likely here, although he may be on hypothermia. Drainer at the same time is still taking a ton of damage. Decides to roll out of the anti-magic zone. Actually rolls right back onto Raikou. Maybe they just want to punch a little bit, add some extra damage there onto him and try and close the game out. Both healers are totally out of mana now at this point in time. Raikou interrupted. Nerd Rage is carrying. Perhaps Method Black have left Nerd Rage open for far too long. He's been owning Raikou. Chaz interrupted by Jamie, but Drainer's in a stun. Who's going to fall first, Drainer or Raikou? Temporal Shield is absorbing all this damage. It's going to heal back for quite a lot. Drainer ports away. Waz is still trying to solo him. He's got Vendetta. Drainer tries to anticipate it with the Fortifying Brew activated, but its defense is now over. He drops Ring of Peace, rolls through it. Waz is going to Cloak of Shadows to immune the knockback and try and reconnect. Waz is in position. Raikou's got control of Nerd Rage. Raikou's back at full health, still with 1 ice block. Drainer can't Way of the Crane for some time. Jamie's in a Cyclone. All 3 players of Zizon unable to commit any actions at this moment in time. Grapple weapon on Waz to try and slow down the pressure, but Raikou is there as well. Drainer has to trade Life Cocoon. He's got absolutely no mana left, although it may be deceivingly low, with the Ever-Rising Tide restoring mana to him more frequently now. Chaz, his essences have definitely been restoring a lot of mana in this position, hovering at that 5% mark for some time. 35% dampening. Raikou with Ray of Frost, slowing Drainer and allowing Waz to reconnect. He rolls into line of sight of Waz. I can't help but feel that was maybe a bit of a mistake. We see the rallying cry of Nerd Rage, boosting Drainer's health, but even that boost of health is not enough. Method Black, clean sweep, Zizon 3-0.
Yep, clean sweep. Although it was nice to see Zizon, you know, they tried something a little bit more aggressive, the Way of the Crane, able to force an ice block. I think one stage in the cast, you said the Raikou hadn't blocked once. It reminded me of him in the hotel lobby being like, they couldn't even force an ice block. Raikou loves something like that. He loves to be a little bit cocky, a little bit cheeky, but he does get the 3-0 victory here and advances to Sunday.
Yeah, and it just doesn't seem like there was enough aggression really on Zizon's part. The composition that they brought, you know, Warrior versus Frostmage, Resto Druid. You guys were hammering on it pretty hard, so I'm not going to go too much in depth about that, but basically it means that you're going to have a bad time. If they go after your healer, you're going to have a bad time. If they go after Nerd Rage, you're going to have a bad time because you're either going to be low and running away, or you're going to be polyed while your healer is stunned, like right here, and you can't do much to help him. Jamie, of course, trying to come out of that crowd control now and give everybody some help. There is a nice intimidating shout, a lot of pressure onto Raikou, and even with the Way of the Crane, they couldn't really force out just enough pressure on Raikou to make him go defensive. And this is also on the smallest map, so this game was the closest, but Zizon was just super, super far away. I mean, at this point in the game, Drainer has no more defensives. He's low HP. He doesn't have anywhere that he can run because the map is so small. Eventually, the Assassination Rogue is going to reach him, and when he does, he is going to go down.
Yep, and we see that at the end there. Obviously, well played by Method Black. They will advance through to Sunday. And now we have our other game in the upper bracket for today to find the team that we're playing against them. And this is always a really good series. This is Diabolos, formerly known as AWC, playing against one of the other success stories of the summer season, Change My Mind here. And I'll be really excited to say, because we saw some of Diabolos' games on Wednesday during the open bracket on twitch.tv/GCDTV. And Alec was the only mage we saw running Arcane, which I know we have 2 fans of the Arcane mage specialization here, the Arcane Dream represent. So we'll have to see, maybe he brings that out. What do we think about it? Because this is a meta where, you know, we've seen the slow-paced games. The Arcane mage is very durable, can spam the purges, can get the Azerite damage. Maybe it could be something to look out for.
Oh, Arcane is good when you have somebody else you can kind of bring a lot of damage. Arcane is good in the sense that you're not going to be getting interrupted that much because you can outrange a lot of kicks. You can blink behind a pillar as you're casting. You get a lot of casts off. And obviously, you're very, very durable as well. You have a lot of healing. You have a lot of mobility. So you're a very tough target to take down. And, you know, with things like Mass Invis, you can also land a lot of CC. The problem is that Arcane just doesn't really have that much upfront damage. So you need somebody else in your team to make up for that.
Yeah, and obviously when it comes to the somebody else, you've got Nixie and you've got Warwick on the team for Diabolos. But one of the big keys that we talked about with them was Jamie, who is now on Zizon, got kicked off of their team. We'll have to see how that plays out for them because so far it hasn't been so great. Obviously, Method Black did make it through to Sunday's broadcast. We are now talking about our next series of the day, which is Diabolos vs. Change My Mind. Then down in lower, we've already got an exciting one lined up. Zizon will play against Wildcard Gaming.